Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, I want to try a new piece of content, and that is reacting to the post-game press conference as well as the Monday press conference of Buccaneers head coach Todd Bowles. If this is something that you guys want to see in future videos, let me know down in the comments section below. I have not heard these yet, so I'm going to be giving my raw reactions, pausing from time to time to kind of give some thoughts and opinions about this. And yeah, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions about this as well. And we can kind of all react to this together. But let's go ahead and dive right in with the first press conference after the loss to the Houston Texans.
What do you describe that last series? I know C.J. Stroud had a day against y'all, but how was he able to go the length of the field when you have the lead there?
We didn't play good fundamental or technique, and we busted something that's everyday practice, and you can't do that. You can't play in this game.
Where were the busts in this? All in the secondary, primarily?
For the most part, yeah.
So how devastating is this from a team perspective? You lost 4 in a row now to walk out of here after Baker gets him in the end zone in 49 seconds.
It's a devastating loss, and no doubt about it. We got to eat it, and all of us feel the same way, especially me. I've been coaching a long time. I haven't been involved in too many of these where it's been back and forth like that and came down on the other end with a few things happening. And we got to eat it, and we should be pissed off all week. We own it. You know, they scored more than enough points on offense to do it. Defensively, the fundamentals and the technique of breakdowns at the end of the ball game and the start of the third quarter unacceptable.
First thing I want to make a note of here is that Todd Bowles looks, upset, right? He looks mad. This is, probably the most emotion I've seen on Todd Bowles after a game ever, possibly. And just to also say that he's a defensive guy, right? And it seems like he's obviously saying, yes, we should be upset. The offense did enough to win. The defense, fundamentally, just everything fell apart towards the end. And to use the words unacceptable, to use the words pissed off, to use all these different types of terminology, again, shows that Todd Bowles is upset, especially considering, again, that's his defense. It's Todd Bowles' calling card that failed in this game, right? And we talked about that already. But to show the emotion here from Todd Bowles, to see the anger right after the game, is interesting, right? You can tell that this one really bugged him. Like he said, he hasn't really been on the receiving end too much of those situations in the past. I mean, good example was the LA Rams game as the last example in Bucs fans' minds. But point being is that you see the frustration there, especially considering it's Todd Bowles' defense and things did not go the way that they should have went. Again, they should have won that game and they didn't.
Can you just talk about Baker's performance overall at quarterback for you today?
Gave us a chance to win. I mean, he gave us a chance to win. They did a good job getting us a chance to win. Defensively, we got to play better. That was bad all the way around.
Were you caught, whether to bring more pressure against him in that situation or just sitting back playing zone?
If we did what we were supposed to do, we would have been fine playing zone.
Now that's interesting. Couple of things, right, is that even to say hey, Baker gave us a chance to win. I agree with that. I think Baker did give him a chance to win. They should have won with that last touchdown from Baker Mayfield to Cade Otton there. Now, like I said, I haven't heard this press conference. I had heard murmurs about that specific quote that we just heard. If we did what we were supposed to do, playing zone would have been fine. You guys know the last drive, Houston Texans went down 1 in 40 seconds. CJ Stroud picked them apart, right? And I've seen some people say that that's a knock, right? Why are you blaming players? And it is iffy, right? I think that comes from a place of frustration rather than blame game. In some ways, right? It's not good whenever you have a head coach saying that, right? Let me just go back and replay it.
If we did what we were supposed to do, we would have been fine playing zone.
If we did what we were supposed to do, we would have been fine playing zone. That is calling out the entire defense, essentially, right? You're calling out the entire defense on that drive. Sometimes those things come out of frustration, folks. Is it a terrible, scorched earth type of quote? No, it's not a great quote, but it is important to remember in context. This is Todd Bowles' defense. He is the defensive guy. It's what got him this head coaching job. It's what got him, a Super Bowl ring, all these different types of, with the Tampa Bay, obviously Tom Brady as well. Duh, right? But also, like, having a good defense certainly helps. So Todd Bowles prides himself in having good defenses. When that pride is hurt like that, a lot of things are said in anger. I'm not saying that as an excuse. I'm just saying, contextually, that's where you're getting this quote from.
What do you have to say about Stroud and just his poise and the kind of day he had today?
Man, he's a good player. We knew that going in, so that hadn't changed my opinion of him.
Anything else?
Coach, at this point, would you consider not calling the defense anymore, or is that on the table?
No, that's not on the table right now.
Now that's interesting. First off, by the way, you can barely hear what the reporters are saying. I know that's been a meme for a while, right? Of like, give these guys some microphones. It sounded like Rick Stroud was asking like 90% of the questions in this game. But what an interesting last question from Rick Stroud to say, are you considering giving up defensive play calling? And Todd Bowles says no. I don't think that... I've heard some people, we've talked about it, I've talked about it with Rep Matthew on the Can of Fire podcast, where this game that just happened is so different than what we've seen from the Buccaneers defense throughout this season already, right? It's different. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense isn't giving up 39 points every single game, right? So I don't necessarily know if the issue is with Todd Bowles' play calling specifically. It may also be a matter of execution in there as well. I think play calling does play a part in it, but also execution does matter as well. Todd Bowles definitely thinks that execution matters because he obviously said, no, I'm not thinking of giving up play calling right now. And yeah, is that the right decision? Is that the wrong decision? I don't know. I mean, you guys give me your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. I would love to hear that. But let's go ahead and get to the Monday press conference, which is a little bit longer, and hopefully we can hear the reporters just a little bit better.
Afternoon.
Todd looks a little bit less mad.
Better on defense. You got 7 guys that have a Super Bowl ring that have played in your system for a long time. How did you let C.J. Stroud throw for almost 500 yards and come back and beat you and put 39 points?
We didn't play well. It's really that simple. We didn't play well. We got to play it better. We got to coach it better.
So again, you're kind of continuing to see this theme the next day, right? Today, Monday, where didn't play well enough, didn't execute enough, and he does say, got to coach it better, right? But again, it seems like Todd is really hamping on execution of the defense, right? And just talking more about the players not executing. Interesting.
We've heard that now for a couple of weeks. You're mired in a 4-game losing streak. What's getting lost between we had a great week of practice to Sundays where obviously yesterday and the weeks before it certainly wasn't good enough to win?
Got to carry it to the game. We practice hard all week. We practice good all week in the game. We got to make plays. We got to make plays. We haven't made them. It's been a struggle. It's been a struggle. We didn't play well yesterday at all, giving up too many big plays. I think it were 9 big pass plays and over coverages we've been doing since day one. And it's not a communication thing. Sometimes you got to look yourself in the mirror, as a player, as a coach, as a team. And we're doing that. And we're doing that today, and we're going to make sure that gets done.
Now that's interesting, right? Like taking a look in the mirror as players, as coaches, as a team as a whole, right? A lot of people, myself included, have said that was a defining game for the Bucs, right? Just that loss that happened is a team that can't win games that matter. That is something that has been talked about, right? Sounds like Todd Bowles is saying a very similar thing where you got to look in the mirror and say, is this really who we are? Is this the type of execution that we're going to be seeing? Is this the type of coaching that we're going to be seeing throughout the second half of this year? Is this the team that we are? It's a good question. And, the Bucs are in that process of looking in the mirror after, this loss and trying to fix what they are right now.
The defense was a big part of why you were 3-1, holding the Saints to single digits. But in these last 4, literally giving up the most passing yards in the NFL, 72% completion, only one pick in those 4 games. Is there something you can point to for why things changed as drastically as they did in the wrong direction?
Nothing specifically. This game in particular, it really fell apart. You know, the other games we were in, we had a shot to win. They were holding it down pretty good. This game right here, and especially in the second half, I think once the first play happened, the big play in the second half to Noah, I think it kind of derailed a little bit and got back on track. And then the calls we've been running since we've been here, everybody knows them. We've been through the situations 1,000 times. We got to coach it better. Evidently, we got to play it better.
With some of the big plays that were allowed, is it more of an alignment issue or vision issue that you said about the zone, or is it just execution?
All of it comes under execution, and it all falls under that. And it's all things that we've done a million times. So we got to play it better, and evidently we got to coach it better.
Todd, in a pre-production meeting with Mark Schlereth before the Falcons game, you told Mark that you guys played man coverage pretty well. You don't play zone very well, yet you're playing a lot of zone, especially in that last series. Why are you playing so much zone if admittedly you guys aren't that good at covering?
Last series, you're going to play zone when the game is on the line so the clock can run out. You're not going to sit there and play man and give them a chance to throw a fade. We played man within that game. We got beat in man coverage too. So right now we getting beat in both. So it really doesn't matter which one we're playing. We just got to coach it and play it better.
That's an interesting quote as well, right? The couple of interesting nuggets there in terms of like, hey, you heard them say, 72 completion percentage, right? They've given up the most passing yards in the last 4 games. And I agree with Todd Bowles there, where he said, look, they had a chance to win all of those games. I mean, besides the Texans game. And I mean, yes, they did have a chance to win that Texans game. They were still in those games, but really went down south here in the Texans game where everything just kind of fell apart execution-wise. Todd Bowles has been talking a lot about execution in these past 2 things, where it's been stuff that they've been running since day number 1 with all the zone. And I do agree with Todd, in terms of playing zone at the final drive of the game. Like, yeah, that's what teams do whenever you're up and you want to keep everything in front of you, especially if the opposing team needs a touchdown and not a field goal. Yeah, I mean, that's something I'm going to be generally agreeing with Todd Bowles on. But again, you talk about coaching, you talk about execution, even the idea of, hey, stuff's been working in practice, and you guys say you have a good week of practice, and then stuff doesn't happen in the games. What's going on here? Like, the media is definitely grilling Todd Bowles about some of these situations. Understandably so. I do think so. There really isn't much else for Todd Bowles to say right now besides just, look, we got to be better,
Todd, can you walk us through the touchdown and tell us, like, exactly, when you're in quarters coverage, pretty much the whole way down the field, right? So
We're in 2 and we're in quarters. We're in 2 most of the way. We're in quarters down in the red zone, something we've done every day, a route we've seen every time. We just didn't make the play.
So is it Carlton? I mean, is that who it's supposed to be?
That was his man. That was his play right there.
So that is definitely an interesting thing as well, where, and look, I don't know how players are going to take this, right? But you're hearing execution. If we played well, we would have won. And now you're getting a guy just name dropped, Carlton Davis. That was his guy giving up on the touchdown at the end, right? Carlton Davis had a really bad game versus the Houston Texans. And now you're just seeing, again, maybe it's frustration from Todd Bowles. I know it's frustration from Todd Bowles, but it's, it's such a slippery slope to be name calling out guys, because do you view that as accountability? Do you view that as finger pointing and blame game? I don't know. It's a slippery slope. Give me your guys' thoughts and opinions about that.
The last 3 touchdowns, Carlton was kind of the nearest defender on all 3. Is he just tired at that point, or what's going wrong?
No, he's not tired. Carlton's one of our players we rely on. He had a bad day.
On your last drive, you had that situation with the fumble, and you had the choice between a 10-second runoff and using a timeout. Why did you choose what you did? And I know at the time you're probably wanting to give yourself time to get that touchdown, and you don't know you're going to score on the next play. But just what was the logic in choosing the timeout instead of the runoff?
Well, that's exactly what you said. We wanted the time, not knowing if we were going to score. We have more time if the ball was thrown in bounds to line up and run another play.
So we saw a shift at safety. Initially, it looked like Delaney was in on nickel, and then eventually was kind of in for Ryan almost all the way. And how did you think he played, and how did that adjustment?
I think D did his job. He's a ball hawk. We try to get more ball hawks out there to get the hands on balls a little bit more, so we made the change right there.
Was Neal benched because of the angle he took on the 75-yard touchdown?
It was part of the play, but Delaney plays back better than Ryan does. Ryan probably plays better in the box than D does.
So that's interesting, right? We talked about this here on the channel to see more D Delaney versus Ryan Neal. Now that kind of talks into the idea that Neal did get benched at some point for D Delaney. So kind of an interesting confirmation there from Coach Bowles. And it sounds like D Delaney's better in coverage, whereas Ryan Neal's better in run stopping, according to Bowles. So definitely may see more of D Delaney moving forward. It sounds like, according to Bowles, that D Delaney did his job. May see more of Delaney moving forward.
What are your thoughts on the amount of pressure that the defense was able to get on the quarterback and what type of impact or how that impacted the game?
I think in the four-man rush, we didn't have enough pressure at all. We didn't blitz. We didn't get that much pressure other than Shaq. Shaq got some pressure here and there, and Cansey was he made some plays there, but we got to get more pressure from everybody else. I don't think that was good at all.
Todd, in picking up on that topic, you guys blitzed 10 times on 24 dropbacks in the first half. Texans only scored 10 points in the second half. And 20 dropbacks from Stroud, you blitzed only 3 times. You got 29.
Well, some of the dropbacks, we had the lead, and it was late. We blitzed in the third quarter, and it burned us, so we went back to playing some more zone.
Now that's interesting, right? Because that also talks about the idea of the pass rush not being good enough, right? And Bowles says it right there. Shaq had a little bit of pressure, but whenever they're not blitzing, they're not getting pressure. A little bit from Cansey as well, but this is something we've also talked about, and Todd Bowles is recognizing, right? And again, I'm not saying that, like, oh, see, Todd Bowles is giving good reasons and stuff, and it's excusable. It's not. Todd Bowles is giving good explanations in terms of what's not working, and it's not hard to figure out, right? They're not getting enough pressure whenever they're not blitzing, and they didn't play good in coverage. And there's a lot of recognition there. Again, a lot of accountability, blame game, accountability, whatever you want to call it in terms, but a lot of discussion on just the defense not being good enough. Again, Todd Bowles' wheelhouse.
They're out of timeouts and at the 10-yard line. Is there any thought of bringing pressure there just so he has to speed up instead of a four-man rush?
There's a lot of thought, and usually that's the type of person I am, but with the way we were playing and some certain guys in different situations, you didn't want to do it.
I want to hear that again. Hold on one second, guys.
I thought
They're out of timeouts and at the 10-yard line. Is there any thought of bringing pressure there just so he has to speed up instead of a four-man rush?
there's a lot of thought, and usually that's the type of person I am, but with the way we were playing and some certain guys in different situations, you didn't want to do it.
Todd, what are you guys doing well defensively right now?
Good question. They're playing hard. Communication is not very good. The coverage has not been very good from a zone concept. Understanding from taking it from the game to practice or practice to the game has not been there. The effort's there. They want to win. They work hard. They understand what to do. Coach communication, the player has been there all the way throughout. We just got to play better. We got to coach better, and we got to play better on Sunday. And we understand that. And the last 4 weeks, we have not whatsoever. And we own that, and we got to look in the mirror. Coaches got to look in the mirror. Players got to look in the mirror. We're one game out of first place. We haven't won, and it feels like quite a while, and it's probably been quite a while. And we got to do it better. But we have nobody coming to save us, and we got to stay together in this building. We got to go out and work, and we got to put it on paper on Sunday.
That's a very, it's a very realistic approach there from Bowles, right? I will say this, like, people cannot like Todd Bowles as a head coach, and that's fine. I think that is a completely understandable reason, right? Bowles has taken a lot of tough questions here, and I think that he is handling these press conferences well in terms of his answers to these questions, right? Yes, they have to play better. What has the defense done well? That's a good question, and again, it depends on how you view it. You could view that as a positive thing. You can view that as a negative thing. But at the end of the day, Todd Bowles is standing up there. He's answering some pretty tough questions. And overall, he's doing a decent, I think he's doing, I would even say, a good job of answering these questions under the line of fire. Whenever the team does lose 4 straight, Bowles is definitely answering these questions well, in my opinion.
Disappointing is it to have that defensive collapse on a day where your offense scores 37 points and points have been so hard to come by on that side of the ball?
It's very disappointing, especially since they've been keeping us in games the past couple of weeks. But yesterday it fell apart, and the offense turned to play well, and the defense didn't play well. We got to play well together.
You had talked before the season about considering letting Larry or letting Casey call some defensive plays that tried them in the preseason. If you were looking for a spark or a change defensively, is that something you would consider, or do you think that's not the answer?
I consider it all the time, but it's not the answer to the problems we have.
Now, that's an interesting thing. They asked yet again, 2 press conferences in a row, are you going to consider giving up play calling duties to Larry Foote or Casey Rogers? Again, Todd Bowles says, no, that's not the solution. I want to play back that quote because that's interesting.
You had talked before the season about considering letting Larry or letting Casey call some defensive plays that tried them in the preseason. If you were looking for a spark or a change defensively, is that something you would consider, or do you think that's not the answer?
I consider it all the time, but it's not the answer to the problems we have.
Okay, I consider it all the time, but that's not the answer to the problems that we have. Again, that alludes to the idea that Todd Bowles believes that, and yeah, he's a defensive guy, right? Of course he's going to say, well, and I don't, you could view that as prideful, right? But I think it just continues to reinforce that idea that Todd Bowles believes that the execution of this defense is currently the problem.
So when there's communication problems out there on the field, again, a lot of these guys have played together now. Coach,
That's very true.
what is going wrong in terms of communication? Can you dissect that for us? What's not happening in terms of communication? Run us through an example.
It's really not all communication. Some people just busting, and it's just as simple as that. And we're saying communication, and we're putting a bow on it, but certain people got to play better. It's really that simple. It's not even a communication issue for the most part, and it wasn't yesterday. And we just got to play better. And we can say it's communication all we want. Some things don't even require communication. It requires playing better and things they've done a million times, and they just got to do it.
We've talked a couple times about third and long as a trouble spot on defense, and they only had 3 third-down conversions yesterday, but all 3 were on 3rd and 10 or longer. You guys are giving up 40% conversions on 3rd and 10 or longer. No other team in the NFL is giving up more than 28%. Is that just more of the same, or why does that continue to be a kind of a weak spot defensively?
Well, some of it, the pass rush got to get there too. When you're playing zone coverage and even man coverage, if you don't get the pass rush, the coverage isn't going to be as good, and vice versa. And then some of it is tackling the screens. They had a screen backed up yesterday that we had tackles and angles on that we did not make.
Again, this it just continues. I mean, what else is Todd Bowles supposed to? It's interesting to kind of hear just explain the communication in depth, right? I believe Scott Reynolds had asked that question. And Bowles even said, like, hey, it's not even really communication. Guys just have to play better. It just sounds like it's that, is it that simple? I mean, just guys got to play better, right? Sometimes just guys just busting coverages. Ryan Neal's a good example of that. In the game where he gave up a 75-yard touchdown against the Houston Texans. A lot of times it's just guys need to play better. And it seems like Todd Bowles feels like execution, otherwise guys playing better, the biggest way that they're going to be getting out of this defensive mess right now.
If you could single out one thing, I know we talked about the coverage, but in general, is the consistent or lack of consistent 4-man pressure the difference for you guys this year? It just hasn't been there consistently.
I don't think it's been there consistently. The pass rush helps the coverage helps the pass rush. They go hand in hand. So it's all 11 guys and all coaches involved on that side of the ball.
As bad as things have gone here, losing 4 in a row, you're a game and a half back. You can play the 2 teams that are ahead of you. Is there any talk with the players about the urgency to get things fixed, knowing that things are still in play for you? This is still a division that you're not that far away from the top one.
Right now, our urgency is to fix the things that went wrong yesterday in the past few weeks and get ready for Tennessee. All that other stuff will come later.
Coach, is there a concern that either your message or your assistant's messages are falling at deaf ears at this point? If some of these problems are lingering?
No, it's not falling on deaf ears. We got some very attentive guys. We got some leaderships in that room that take full responsibility and understand what we have to do as a team. So that's getting across. We just got to play better.
I don't know what happened, but Levante got a 15-yard flag on that last touchdown. It would be understandable there's some level of frustration.
He was pissed off after the touchdown. He threw his helmet down, which you can't do, but I understand the frustration level.
There we go, folks. That's it. So again, from those couple of press conferences that we had just heard, a lot of it is these guys got to play better, right? It was more focused on defense, right? Because that is the thing that failed in the Houston Texans game. But to talk about executing better, the pass rush has to get there whenever they're not blitzing, right? And that's something we've talked about. The secondary has to play better. We've talked about that. All of these things you're hearing Todd Bowles, echo in terms of these press conferences, right? And, hey, the media really grilled him about that. Understandably so. The Bucs are in a rough situation right now. They lost 4 games in a row. Their defense just got shredded by CJ Stroud, and there's a lot that needs to be answered for that. I will say, Todd Bowles answered those questions well. In my opinion, right, I think that he did a great job in terms of standing up there, answering some difficult questions and giving clear answers, right? You're not hearing, I don't know. You are hearing, guys need to execute better. Guys need to play better. Communication isn't necessarily the issue. These guys have good chemistry. The coach-to-player communication seems to be good, according to Todd Bowles, in practice. It's taking that level of execution that you see in practice to the game, right? A lot of people can view that as blame game, finger pointing, whatever that may be. Some people can view that as accountability. In my opinion, it is what it is, right? I mean, players know that they need to play better, right? And I don't think that Todd Bowles was necessarily phrasing it in a way of, necessarily just putting that blame on the players, right? There was a lot of blame being put on the players, and I think some of that comes from frustration, but also you hear Todd Bowles say we got to coach better, and all these different types of things, right? So it depends on how you want to take that. It is a subjective thing regarding some of those answers. But overall, the Bucs have a lot of stuff that they need to improve on. They know it, right? The players know it. Todd Bowles knows it as the head coach. He very clearly said what they need to improve on. Pressure whenever they're not blitzing, and just doing better in coverage in terms of just executing better on defense. We saw the offense finally begin to execute more. Now it's the defense's turn. And this was a very different game. Todd Bowles said this is a defense that, has kept them in games in the past few weeks. This time it all fell apart, right? So now they're going to be looking to rebound versus the Tennessee Titans. So very interesting answers there regarding the press conference. Very interesting questions from the Buccaneers media. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions about the answers that Todd Bowles gave down in the comments section below. What do you think about him talking about players needing to execute better? Do you view that as a negative thing? Do you view that as a positive thing? Just give me your thoughts and opinions about these press conferences down in the comments section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope y'all enjoyed. Let me know if you want to see more of this type of content as well. And as always, folks, I'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.